I'm going to go back a little bit. So the first arrival, from there on, we lived 32 years in Roatan before we started to venture off to Belize. We went to Belize, we arrived in Belize in about 1802, and then we went on to Guatemala. In Guatemala, we arrived around 1806, 1804 depending, because you have a small delegation and bigger than our region. And then we started to arrive in Nicaragua. And so we still live there in all of these countries. We have a huge population. Honduras has the largest population of, I want to say 52 communities in Honduras. They have the largest. And then we have Belize with the second largest, in Guatemala and Honduras. There's also communities in St. Vincent, but again, what happened to them in St. Vincent is they lost everything. They lost their language, but they're still there. And again, up until maybe recently 20 to 35 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, they really didn't identify with us. They were like Garifuna people. They didn't want to have anything to do with us. But now, it's a different story. It looks differently now. Chief Joseph Chartier family, he was the chief that was killed during our last battle, during the last Carib War. According to records and oral history, amongst those who made it to Roatan were Chartier's brother, Duvalier, and one of Chartier's son, and one of Chartier's daughters, Galisu. There's also rumors that one of Chartier's son also made it to Haiti. His older son, the oral history is that they were afraid that they were going to, assassinate his oldest son, so they whisked him away to Haiti. Now, in oral history, led by Chartier's daughter, Galisu, their descendants describe 6 different original Garifuna tribes. They were called the Orehuna, the Ararahuna, the Olikina, the Maziragana, the Habaragana, and the Siwana. Those are our tribe names, our Garifuna tribe names. Those are the 6 ones that we belong to. Now, this is a little bit of untold, where Garifuna and African American and American history collides. Anybody ever heard of the African Grove Theater? African Grove Theater. Heard about that? No? Okay, so the African Grove Theater is the first theater in New York City by who they believe is a Garifuna man. Okay? I'm going to go a little bit into this. William Henry Brown, the African Company, the first known black theater troupe in the United States. Okay? In 1860, William Brown, a retired West Indian seaman steward, acquired a house on Thomas Street in Lower Manhattan, New York. He offered a variety of instrumental and vocal entertainment on Sunday afternoons in the tea garden, attracting sizable audience from the 5 boroughs of New York City. Okay, I'm gonna go down. Brown also wrote and staged the first African-American play, the drama of King Chartier. We were exiled. And nobody here has heard about that history. That's American history. It's not even African history. That's American history. That's part of our history. So, during that time, you have to think about what was going on. You have just had the things that were happening with Nate Turner. If you all know the history about Nate Turner, he was one of the slaves that revolted against the masters and everything here on American soil. Some of you know what happened in Haiti. They were revolting over there. So during this time, this guy wrote this play about these Garifuna people who had this land, who fought the Europeans for 150 years. Did you think America wanted that history to be told during when all of these revolutions were going on? Do you understand why we were erased from the timeline here? Because they knew about us. What happened to this theater? They burned it down. That's why you don't know about this history. They burned it down.
There you go.
Donald Trump's ancestors
Probably.
No, we don't want you to know this history.
Wow.
It's too DEI.
I'm telling you, I'm telling you, when they start eliminating, erasing history, they do a very good job. Because this happened in 1832, 18 something? We're here in 2025, and this is the first time you all are hearing about your history. This ain't my history. It's my history because they're talking about my chief. And this play was about what happened. This play was about the last battle of the Caribs over there. They didn't want to hear about that. And this story has never been told here. Because what did they do? They destroyed the history. So, if you don't know, you could find a little bit about him in very few historians, art historians, theater historians know about him. When I come across, when I say less than a handful of people, it's literally less than a handful of people who I've heard a little bit about him, but they didn't know who the characters were. And when I tell them, they were talking about my people.
Can you spell this next so I can type it in?
His name is William Henry Brown. And the theater is the African Grove Theater.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll teach you about it in class.
And he did other plays that they didn't burn down, like Othello and all these other stuff. But that play, they burned down. Next one, and then we're going to wrap up to music. So a brief history of Garifuna in Los Angeles. The first migration of Garifuna people in the United States was documented in the early 1950s during the United Fruit Company plantation. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. The United Fruit plantation was in Central America, first in Guatemala. That's a whole history because the United States started a coup against the Guatemalan government. But during that time, Garifuna people were merchants. They were merchant marines. They came from Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, worked for that company, and they settled a huge population in Louisiana. So when you think about where they were in Louisiana, think about Katrina. A lot of those Garifuna people, once upon a time, that was the second largest Garifuna community outside of Central America. After Katrina, a lot of those people, they left because those were the areas that where Garifuna people migrated to. They left and they relocated to Houston. But we've been there, and they know we've been there since that time. So now, in the United States, the first largest Garifuna community is in New York. We have well over 200,000 Garifuna people living in New York. Okay? Then the second largest is here in Los Angeles. We have over 80,000 plus living here in Los Angeles. And then now again, the third largest right now is in Houston. We have in Chicago, we have Garifuna people everywhere. But that's what we do. We're here. We do things like this. We continue to celebrate our history. Again, 228 years since we've been exiled. And we still continue to maintain our history, our heritage, our culture. Next. So one of the things about identity, Garifuna Dwo is basically our Garifuna way. That's what Garifuna Dwo means to us, is our way. And our way is our identity. In our identity and our way of life, Garifuna Dwo, that's who we are. While identifying as Afro-Latino, Afro-descendant, or Afro-American is fine here in the United States, however, Garifuna people referring to ourselves as such in our home countries and motherland will cost us all the claims of our indigenous land rights. From the beginning, I said this was about land rights. To this day, it's about land rights. Because even in Honduras, in Guatemala, we're still fighting for our land rights today. Because what's happening in Honduras is they're coming and they're taking our land rights by saying that, oh, you guys are not Garifuna. You guys are Afro-descendants. You guys are Afro this and Afro that. You're not original here. So you don't have, land rights. What they're doing in St. Vincent is because of these treaties that we signed, they don't want us to claim land rights. So they're trying to continue to keep that slave that you guys were escaped slaves, so we can't go ahead and challenge them on our indigenous land rights and fight them with those territories that we have. So they've been pushing in St. Vincent for the past 20, 25 years. Their prime minister has been saying, you guys are first, we weren't included in their whole reparation act because we were nomads. And first, we didn't exist, according to him. Then we were nomads. We didn't have any land, so we couldn't be part of their reparation scheme. But now, all of a sudden, they're inviting the Garifuna people there. And it's like, oh yeah, they're indigenous to us. They could be part of the whole reparation. What reparations? We don't want reparation. We want restitution. We want you to restore our land rights back to us or compensate us for the land that you stole from us. That's what we want. But they're still pushing for the whole reparation thing because, again, it's all about land rights. Because once we sign over reparation, they get the land and we get whatever measly dollar amount or whatever they want to give us. But we don't want that. We want our land back. And so, again, living here, the most important things that we have been lacking within the Garifuna community in Los Angeles are identity, visibility, and representation. We are put in this generic box of being labeled Black or Afro-Latino, rather than being seen or addressed by our authentic Garifuna identity. When it comes to visibility, regardless of its participation within African American, Latino, Central American community, Belize, Caribbean, we are usually an afterthought for inclusion, except for during census. During the census, everybody wants us, because everybody wants their numbers. But the thing with the census is when everybody gets the funding, we're not thought of. None of those fundings get trickles down to the Garifuna community. But again, people are pulling us left and right. No, you're African American. No, you're Afro-Latino. You're one of us. But we've maintained our identity, and we can't rely on that. We could only be who we are. And we are Garifuna. Like I started at the beginning, Garifuna Nugia. I am Garifuna. But that didn't allow. I'm proud to be Garifuna. As you are all proud to be who you are. Whether you're African American, Chinese, whatever, you're proud of your heritage, and I'm proud of my heritage. So when you see me, know that I speak Garifuna. And when you see me, know that we are here. Okay, thank you for your time. The last slide. So one of the things that we did is we made sure in 2004, so long ago, that we proclaimed Garifuna Heritage Month here in the city of Los Angeles. So every month, every year in November is Garifuna Heritage Month, and we do different things throughout the communities. And we'll make sure that we send it to the different organizations to let you know what's going on. But November is a big month in our Garifuna community.